Hi guys, this is Jeff at Slavens Racing. This video is about how to cold start your KTM, Husqvarna, or GasGas dirt bike. The procedure is basically the same on all of them, but I'll go over the little details here. So I've got a 23300XCW sitting here, which is a TPI model. I've got a 23300XC, which is a TBI model. And then I've got my dual sport bike down there, which is a 2500XCFW. Alright, so unfortunately in the KTM owner's manual, at least this is what I've been told, I haven't verified this, but it says in there to use the cold start button. Well, none of these bikes have a cold start button. That's totally wrong, and I'll explain as I go through here. Alright, so let's start out with the TPI model, the 300W. It's got a button down here, right here, and that's actually a fast idle button. It is not a cold start. So a true cold start button would actually dump fuel into the system, because that's what motors want when they're cold. They need more fuel, unless the fuel ratio to be increased compared to the air. And when you pull that button on these TPI models, it opens an air passage and puts more air into the system, and that's what creates the fast idle. So that does not help them start when they're cold. So I've never ever used that button. I've never pulled that button out. I never will use it because it doesn't do a damn thing for me. Now, if you want your bike to idle fast after you've started, if you're convinced you got to sit there and let it idle, load up your system, we'll go right ahead. Well, then maybe you'd want to pull that out after you've started it. And like I said, after you've started it, it will make it idle faster. All right, so let's go over here to this model. This is the 300XC TBI throttle body injection, and it's got a totally different system. It's more like a 4-stroke. If you look down in there, oh boy, this camera's not wanting to focus on that, but there's a yellow knob down there, and you push that in for a fast idle, but not for starting. That is not a cold start button. It does not add fuel to the system. It only pushes on the throttle cam where the cables hook on. It pushes on that cam and increases the idle. That's usually not a benefit for cold starting a bike. And so a couple little things about that button is, all right, you push it in, and then obviously in order to get in there, the pipe is hot and stuff, so you're going to possibly burn your hand because it's kind of hard to access. So you can get to it down there it is. What was I going to say? Oh, so to release that, you just go up here to the throttle and you hold it wide open. So you just give it a quick blip, just, and that releases that button, and then it brings it back to a normal idle. And if you're afraid to do that while the engine's running, you can always shut it off and then blip the throttle and then start it back up. But that releases that button, makes it pop back out. All right, now there's another knob down there, and that's the red one right in there. That is your actual idle button. So if you want to set your idle, if you feel like you need to increase or decrease the idle, after the motor's been completely warmed up and cleaned out, that's the idle screw that you use. Now the one on the bottom, obviously it's shaped like a knob. It's got places where you can grab it easily. And that is, you can adjust the fast idle. So you can adjust how fast it idles when that's pushed in. And it only affects when that's pushed in. When the bike has been warmed up and you've been riding it or whatever, then you use the red one. But just if you're fast, if you push that in and it's still not idling fast enough, or maybe it's idling too fast, then you can adjust it with that yellow knob. You can screw it in or out to adjust the idle however you need. Okay, let's go over here to the 4-stroke. And it's got the same type system, same type throttle body. You can see it's got a yellow knob in there also. Same deal there. You push that in, and it will give you a fast idle. But it does not make it start easier, and I would not use that to start it. The way I start them is I push the starter button. I don't mess with any of that other stuff. It does not help them start. Now, 4-strokes tend to not like to idle when they're cold. So once you've started it, you could push that button in and let it idle for a while. And on 4 strokes, it doesn't load up the system or cause any other negative effects like that. With one caveat, one exception. The RFS motors, the old as they were called RFS, I believe they were from 2000 through 2007. Those had a kind of a wimpy oil pump, and the oil pump is at the bottom of the motor, and at the very top of the motor, which is the farthest distance away from that pump, are your cam and cam bearings. And on those RFS motors, they really didn't pump enough oil to keep those cam and cam bearings lubricated for a long idle period. So I would never let those idle for a long period of time. I'm sure some guys are going to leave comments that my bike idles just fine and I let it idle all the time, but well, you go right ahead, but you're doing damage to your RFS motor when you're doing that. And it's not like one time is going to lunch the motor. It's over multiple times. All right, so the actual starting procedure, and then to go back to this 4-stroke for a second. That yellow knob, same as on that 2-stroke. If you push that in and it's not idling fast enough or too fast, you can adjust that yellow knob. And also I should go over the idle on it as well. So the idle button on this bike is really buried, but right in there is a red knob, and that is the idle screw, excuse me. So that's where you would set your normal idle, not the fast idle. All right, so I start, the bike's the same on all of them. That is, I hit the starter. This is different than what you're used to seeing. This is an aftermarket switch. But your starter button, because this is the kill button, kill button and starter button. As I bump it once or twice, like that, and that will cycle the fuel pump and load the system, squirt a little fuel in there, and get it ready to start. Then hit the button. All right, if it does not start up pretty quick, like this one did, do not sit there and grind on the starter button. I mean, on the starter motor. I see guys doing that in parking lots too at the trailhead. They'll just sit there, ying, 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 and their bike won't start. Well, they're just destroying their starter motor and the gears and the bushings and everything else at the same time. That does big damage real quick to them. So I highly recommend you don't do that. If your bike doesn't want to start, then try it again in short bursts like I just did, or dig deeper. You got some other issue going on. All right, guys, I think that about covers it on my startup procedures. I'm sure you all have your own, and some guys are going to want to debate about my method, but it works. It doesn't get the system all loaded up, doesn't damage the starter motor, and you start it however you want, but please don't leave snarky comments, because I'm just going to delete them. You snarky dudes that have nothing better to do, I'm over you. And if you have something constructive, something that will help our other viewers, that's great. We always appreciate that. If you have questions, that's great as well. Snarky comments are not welcomed or tolerated and will be deleted. All right, guys, so if you would like us on Instagram and Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube, give us a shout out when you can. Get out there and be a good trail steward. Take care of the trails. Help educate other trail users, other motorcycle riders, and also be kind to the other trail users. They pay their taxes. They have a right to the trail as well. Hopefully they pay their taxes. And hopefully I'll see you out there on the trail. That's all for now.